Welcome to Sewing Anastasia, and today I'm going to show you a pattern hack. You're going to be able to take any blouse pattern and turn it into a shift dress. And this is going to be so easy. Easier than you think. Just real quick before we get into this, if you really enjoy the Sewing Anastasia videos, make sure you like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. It really helps out the channel a lot. And if you're looking to learn more about sewing in general, well, make sure you check out my online sewing academy and my sewing club. There's links for those down below. So you can literally use any top or blouse pattern to create this shift dress. You can use a blouse pattern that has a collar and a yoke and gathering and smocking and long sleeves, or you could use a knit blouse pattern like a polo shirt. You can use something more complicated that has buttons down the front, pin tucks, lace, collars, the whole shebang. Or you can use a blouse pattern that has darts in the bust. That's right, you can use any blouse pattern you want to create a shift dress. I'm going to be demoing today with this pattern here. I know it looks the most complicated out of all of these, but it doesn't matter because this technique is easy to do on a complicated blouse or a simple blouse. In fact, it is the exact same process. So go pick out a blouse pattern and let's start pattern hacking. When you're looking at your pattern pieces in your blouse, you want to grab the front and the back blouse pattern pieces. You don't need any of these other pattern pieces because we're just adjusting the front and back blouse. I'm gonna start with my back pattern piece, and I've ironed all the wrinkles out of it. Make sure you flatten your pattern piece so you're gonna get an accurate representation of it. You're also going to need a few supplies. You're going to need your pencil. I would get a French curve, your tape measure, a nice long straight ruler, and some paper to transfer to. Now it's time to take a few measurements. We need to figure out how long do you want your shift dress. Measure from your natural waist down however long you would like it. I'm gonna be measuring mine 18 inches down from my natural waist. And if you don't know where your natural waist is, do a little teacup, find out where your body indents there, and measure from this spot down. Now, the pattern is going to have a mark, hopefully, where the waistline is, and this is where we're going to be measuring from. While we have the tape measure, we are also going to be taking our hip measurement. So grab your tape measure and place it around the widest part of your butt/hips, so that way we can make sure our dress is going to fit us properly. So I've got about 37, 38 here comfortably, so I'm just gonna write that down and save that number for later. So I have my back pattern piece here, and I'm going to position it on my paper. So this edge of the paper is a straight edge, so I'm going to bring my center back right up to that straight edge since my center back is straight on this pattern. If you had a different shape to your center back, you obviously could place it in the middle of your paper. I'm going to weight this down so it does not move on us. Excellent. And now I'm positioned and ready to trace out. So looking at our pattern, you can see that our waistline is right here. Now I want to mark this on my paper. I'm going to use an awl and just push it through on both ends so I can connect those dots later. You could use a pattern pinwheel, you could use a pin, you could use transfer paper, whatever you like, but make sure you're marking the waistline on your paper below. So now we're going to trace all the way around the outside of our blouse pattern here. And you want to transfer any details that you have from the underarm up on your pattern. So right here, I've got a crease line for a dart. I do want to transfer this. So I'll be transferring this with my awl so I can go back and draw this line in after. But I do have some details down here below the waistline, and I am going to ignore these. I'm not going to transfer these because we're making it into a shift dress. Everything from the underarm down is going to be omitted. But that's only if it's creating shape. So I don't need it fitted down here below my waist because we're turning it into a shift dress. So I'm going to omit those dart tucks. If you had a regular dart down there or something like that, just omit those. If you had a style line though, keep that. You want to keep that style line so you can keep the integrity of your design. So I'm just going to start at the back here and I'm just going to trace out the best I can. We're going to go back and true up our lines. So what that means is just straighten them out. You can use a ruler on these spots too if you like. So just take your ruler, place it right next to the edge of the paper, and then there you go. Then you got a nice straight line. You can also do the same thing with your French curve if you're having a hard time tracing some of these out. I generally like to go through and rough trace and then I'll true up later. Now that I have everything marked, I am good to remove my paper pattern. Now I'm going to draw in my waistline here. And I'm gonna true up any of my lines that don't look straight. I actually don't really need to true up the side because we're gonna be changing this, but I do want this corner right here nice and straight. And then I will clean up this underarm. There we go, looking good. Okay, I'm also gonna label this and put a little grain line on it. And I'm gonna transfer that dart fold line that I marked out before. There we go. Now our pattern is fully transferred and ready to be turned into a dress. Now we're gonna use that length measurement. So that one where you measured from your waist down. So mine was 18 inches. So I'm gonna place my ruler at my waist at 1, and then I'm going to put a mark here at 18 inches at my center back. So I know how long it needs to be here at center back. Before we draw our next line, we want to measure our pattern and see what the measurement is at our hips to make sure that we are extending our pattern enough so that way it's going to hang nicely over our hips. So I have both my pattern pieces here, back and front, and now what we're going to do is measure the hip on this pattern to see what we're working with. So we can line up our seam allowance lines for the hip, which is going to be down here. So I want you to also measure from your waist down 9 inches. That's roughly your hip measurement. We're gonna make it bigger anyways. We just wanna double check it. So now what we're going to do is measure the bottom of this pattern here because it happens to be that this one does go to your hip. Yours could have stopped here though for the hip. And if that's your hip here, then you wanna measure across your pattern there. But you need to take into consideration any seams that you have in your pattern or anything that's going to make it smaller. Now I'm omitting the dart tucks on the back, I'm omitting the dart tucks on the front, but I am keeping these pin tucks on the front. So I wanna measure this waist measurement here minus these pin tucks here and minus my button placket seam allowance over here. So we're going to measure this and make sure that when we times 2, it is bigger than my hips. And if it's not, I gotta make sure when I'm extending that line on the pattern, it's going to be bigger than my hips. So I measured the hip on this pattern and it came out to 40 inches. And my hip was around 37, 38. So I know if I'm extending my line on the side seam and I'm beyond the pattern piece, that this is going to fit. For these next steps, you're going to need a line where your hip is. And if your blouse doesn't go to your hips, well, we gotta mark that out on the paper. So you're just gonna measure down from your waist on you with a tape measure and figure out where your hip line is. And then we wanna make sure that we're extending it out. So to measure this line accurately, we need to take one more measurement. We're going to be measuring from center back at the fullest part of your hip all the way over to the side seam. And so this is gonna give us half of the measurement for our back hip measurement. So because we're only working in half of the pattern, we just need half of it. So on this dress form here, I have 9. So what I would do is mark out 9 from center back of the pattern over to the side. So I have that all marked out right here. Now it's time to draw out the side seam of our shift dress. To get the full measurement for our side seam length, we need to measure from the underarm to the waist. And I've got 7 1/4 here. So now I'm gonna add 7 1/4 to the length that I want my dress to be, and I wanted my dress to be a length of 18 inches down from my waist. So the magic number for my side seam is going to be 25 1/4. Let me show you how we're going to use that. Before I draw my side seam, I'm going to add 2 inches of ease to my hip here, which will give me a total of 8 inches of ease in the hips in my dress. So there is my 2 inches of ease that I have extended out from my hip line. To draw our side seam, I'm going to line up my ruler with the underarm seam, and then I'm going to swing it out and make sure the ruler touches my ease point at the hip. And then I'm going to draw a line that is 25 1/4 inches long. And now this here is my new side seam for my shift dress. So now I'm gonna use my L square to line it up with center back and my 18-inch mark at center back. And we're gonna draw it all the way across the bottom of the skirt. Don't worry about connecting the side seam line because it's not going to match. So your side seam is not going to run into this bottom line unless you just came out a smidge. The further we come out on the side seam, the bigger the curve is going to be, matching the side seam with the hem. So I'm going to use my French curve here and I'm going to blend the side seam with the hem. So you can see I just have a little bit of a swing up here. By adding this swing up, it's gonna make sure our hem is nice and even all the way around. If you kept this line straight all the way across, you're gonna end up with some funny points at your side seams. Let's say your hips were much wider and the angle was going out much further. Let me show you how that hem is going to look different. So I'm gonna use the same process, pivoting from the underarm. And let's say I came all the way out here and drew a line to 25 1/4. You're gonna notice that my side seam is way up here. And that line that comes straight across from that 90-degree angle is way down here. It's okay, it's supposed to be like that. Now you are going to connect that side seam to the hem with a curved ruler. So your side seam starts to curve up at the side seam the wider you swing out. So that is how you make the back of the blouse into a shift style. Now keep in mind that you can make it as shifty as you like. You can swing it out a lot or you can swing it out a little. It's totally up to you. Now we're gonna move on to the front bodice pattern, and we have a few little details we need to keep in mind so that way this turns out nice and balanced. So I've transferred my front bodice pattern to some paper. I've marked out my pin tucks. I've marked out my gathering line. I've also marked out my waistline. So I have everything essential I need to create this into a shift dress. Again, I omitted my dart tucks because I don't want any fit down here below the waist. One thing to take into consideration is that your front hip line could need an extension just like the back. So measure from center front to your side seam on your body. See what that measurement is. Now, my hip was actually 1 inch smaller than this. So I'm gonna leave the extension right where it's at and just add my 2 inches of ease to the hip line. That's really the only thing that you need to double check and watch out for when you're extending your front into the shift style. The rest I'm gonna do exactly the same. Just remember to use the exact same side seam length that you used on the other pattern piece, so that way your side seams match up when you're sewing. So I'll be using 25 1/4 on my front side seam here because that is what I did on the back. Since we've turned this blouse pattern into a dress, make sure you add seam allowance to your hem so that way it turns out long enough when you finish it. You could add a 1/2 inch, you could add 1 inch, it's totally up to you and how you want to finish it later. So I finished the front and I've cut out both of the pattern pieces. Let's check them out. Well, wouldn't you know it, this here looks like a pattern for a shift dress. When you take a look at these patterns, you can really see where the blouse was and what we did to create the shift dress from this blouse pattern. Now, if you have a detail like these pin tucks on your pattern, I suggest extending them all the way down through your pattern just to continue the design. You're still going to have your shift look, we're just continuing the style. So we've taken this vintage blouse pattern and we've transformed it into a shift dress. How cool is this? It looks like a shift dress pattern now, with all the details of this blouse. Thanks so much for watching Sewing Anastasia today. If you have any questions about turning your favorite blouse into a shift dress, leave it down below in the comments and I'll get back with you as soon as I can. And let me know what other pattern hacks you would like to see. If you enjoyed the video today, make sure you like and subscribe to Sewing Anastasia. It really helps out the channel a lot. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you know when the new videos come out. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for watching today. Don't forget, I teach sewing classes in my design studio here in Chicago, Illinois, and pattern drafting classes. So make sure you check those out through the link down below. And if you're not in Chicago, well, I now have an online sewing academy and a pattern club, so check that out as well. Links for those are down below. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, especially because I'm always posting in my Instagram stories what's going on in the studio. So make sure you stay connected and we can stay creative together. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.